What's up, guys? On this episode of the Massive Agent Podcast, we are talking about money, and we have a special guest from Instagram, Neel. You guys have probably seen him all over the internet. He's been on the show before to talk about content, and he's become a real content machine. But what he does content about is what we're talking about today: money. What should you do with money as a real estate agent, and what should you be advising your clients to do with theirs? All right, guys, I'm here with Neel Dhingra, Neel Home on Instagram. What's up, man? Welcome back to the Massive Agent Podcast.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last time you were on the show, we were talking about content and posting content and how you do it and all that. And you're a master. You do some of the best quality stuff that I've seen, and you're super consistent with it. And you've really built a content machine. But that's not why I'm bringing you back. I want to talk about what you're doing the content about, because it's not stuff that we hear that often, at least within the real estate and mortgage industry. Most of it is how to get more clients, how to do this, how to make money, but then what the hell should we do with it once we have it? And so that's where I want to steer this conversation today. So for anyone that doesn't know Neel Home yet, doesn't follow Neel Home on Instagram, first off, pause this shit, go follow him real quick, then come back. But Neel, you're in the mortgage side of the business. Give a quick little 30-second blah 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 about what you do and who you are, my friend.
Yeah, I work in the mortgage business. I originate loans myself in multiple states, and then I have a team of people that I've built over the years that do the same. So we support real estate agents and we do traditional loans, just like a regular mortgage lender. But what shifted everything in my business was content creation and marketing. So when I figured out how to market digitally and create content across the internet, and that could be in multiple ways, like we talked last time, it changed my business and my life for the most part. So from there, I just was able to have exponential growth. And, we talk a lot in this industry about growth, right? And we talk about like growth in terms of adding a few extra deals. And I feel like for all of us in this industry, like what we think of as growth, anybody else like in the corporate world or in the internet world would laugh at, because we're like, yo, we added $50,000 to our revenue this year. That's cool. Like, well done. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like add some deals. I don't knock that at all. But what you find is when you go from speaking in one-to-ones to speaking one-to-manys, like what we're doing right now on this podcast, like now all of a sudden your top of your funnel gets massive, and now you can have exponential growth. And that's what's cool. And that's how you add, instead of adding $100,000 to your income in a year, you can add $1 million to your income in a year. And people think, oh shit, that's far-fetched. No, I'm no smarter than any average real estate pro or mortgage guy, maybe a little bit now. I don't know. I've talked to some dumb people, but like,
out there,
I don't know, like for the most part, if I took an IQ test, it's like just slightly above average IQ, as normal.
Yeah.
Dude, nothing special about me. I'm not even particularly that great at content, like personally, videos and stuff like that, but just consistency, like you said, and that's what's led to all the growth for me.
So in your Instagram bio, this was super interesting, and this is what got my attention. I'm sure it grabs a lot of people's attention, but it made me want to have you on the show for something other than content, but talk about money and what to do with it and how to manage it. And do you finance cars? Do you pay cash? Do you lease? Like, those types of questions I just don't hear very often, and it's hard to get it out of people. But your bio says you went from 300K to 2.8 million a year using social. I mean, that's all you need to know. You literally 10x'd your annual income by posting things on the internet. Amazing, right? Now, what is it that you're posting, and why is it, how come you think that it's transformed your business so much? Why is it resonating with your audience so much?
Well, what it's done is this is a kind of a quick story. So 3 years ago, I had a kind of opportunity, I guess, privilege of doing a podcast with Gary Vee. I know you were at one as well, a year after I met with him, but I was at one of the questions I asked him specifically was like, dude, I'm in the mortgage business. This stuff is pretty boring. Like, how do I create more content? I know you always say post, 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 but like I'm out of shit to post. What do I do? And Gary's
Post
like, look,
what?
Neel, yeah. And he's like, dude, you don't understand. You guys are in real estate mortgage. You're in a business where people need you once every 5 to 7 years. You're looking for a needle in a haystack. How do you keep them engaged in the time period where they don't need you? They don't even give a shit about a real estate deal right now because they're years away from the next real estate deal. How do you keep people in the audience? Well, why don't we broaden this to financial fitness? And he told me that, and that always stuck with me. I was like, really, financial fitness? How's that possible? What is he talking about? He's like, dude, financial news, relevant financial tips, using real estate as a way to build wealth. These are all things that people are interested regardless of when they're transacting. So I'm giving you a reason to stay engaged with me, even though you don't have to be doing a deal right now. And there's multiple ways to do this. But with me, I'm more of a nerd, and like I like researching ways to make money and invest and do this. So then I just started sharing like what I've learned about money over the past 10, 15 years and how I've personally invested in real estate and how I'm personally doing this stuff. And everything we talk about today, guys, if you're listening, like Dustin nor myself are licensed financial advisors. We're not licensed tax professionals, but we can share our experience. I can share what clients, like the most wealthy clients that I've had, when I ask them, hey, sidebar conversation, like, hey, dude, how do you do this? Or I noticed you do this with your taxes. How'd you do that? And then they give me tips and so you can research more things. And that's what we're going to share today. More about, I want to share is like what I've learned and how, other people can do the same shit.
I didn't know that direction that you took your content really started from some insight from Gary Vee. That's pretty cool. I mean,
yeah.
And it's so perfect for mortgage people and real estate agents because we are helping people with investments, or at least something that it depends on how you look at it, is their first or only. That's the same thing, actually. The first and only, the first and only and largest transaction ever. So, like, even if they don't intend it to be an investment, it becomes one once they have 200 grand in equity all of a sudden because they bought. We should be giving financial advice as much as we can, right? Disclaimer: we're not certified financial planners or any of that bullshit. Insert disclaimer here. But like you said, you learn things from your clients, and then you can share that with others from your experience. And then it's more than just like, let me get this loan done for you. Let me sell you this house, and then done.
Yeah, everyone's transactional. This becomes more like, okay, I'm giving you real advice.
Yes.
Right.
Which
and
they'll want more of in their life.
Yes. Yeah. And like learning about the financial opportunity of homeownership is huge. That's even more important than the first house. Because let's be honest, in today's market, someone's not getting their dream house, first house. They're getting whatever they can get, whatever they can afford. And then it becomes more about getting in the game. So how many clients have all of us served where that purchase changed their financial life? Like it was that much of an impact, right? They purchased a property 5 years ago. They've gained $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in equity over that time period. How else would they have saved that money? Like where they don't have that kind of leverage in the stock market. They don't have the ability to save hundreds of thousands of dollars over a 5-year window, but they do have the ability to use real estate and leverage to build that kind of wealth. And I know of no other way for the average American to get that level of wealth creation other than real estate. And that's not to say that every year real estate is going to go up for the rest of our lives. There can be some pullbacks, whatever, but even using like really, conservative rates of appreciation, which do account for down years, you still have a massive wealth generator over a long term, and long term meaning like 5, 7, 10-year periods.
Right. There was the first time that this really dawned on me, Neel, was when I was helping a client, and I helped them as first-time home buyers. They bought a place, wasn't their dream house, not the ideal neighborhood, but it's what they could afford and what they could get. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago when they bought their first place. Then a couple of years they came back and they're like, hey, I think we have a bunch of equity. And I was like, let me look. And sure enough, they had around 100K in equity already. Because they bought in the right area that appreciated pretty quickly. And so then they were able to use that. They sold the house, used the proceeds as a large down payment on their next house. And that was, according to them, their dream house. They built something new. It's bigger, it's nicer, newer, everything. And they're stoked. had they not bought the first one and gotten in the game, like you say, that wouldn't have happened. Like, how long does it take to save up 100K?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I mean, like if you don't have the income to do so, probably never, it's not happening.
Probably never.
Like,
exactly.
it'll happen over a time period with your 401k or something because of appreciation and long-term investing and compounding. But like over a 5-year period, it's not possible with the home. Right. So, like these benefits are huge, and we just have to talk more about them as real estate pros, mortgage pros. And that's a great piece of content that you could literally never run out of, sharing that stuff. And even if it's not you personally at this stage, sharing success stories from clients, sharing what you're learning, become a student of the game and learn. Like every time I see a guy who's got 15 rental properties, I want to know how did you do all that? Like, what are the tax benefits of doing all that? How did you do this? What do you do that? And then you start to learn these great things about owning rental properties and, doing it in a tax efficient way. And you will never run out of content ideas when you go this route, if you really are interested in it. And for me, I love it personally. So then it comes out in what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And I want to dive into the specifics of that because I want to expand on that, because I think there's the majority of agents out there, they're still not practicing what they preach. And, for the vast majority of my career, I didn't practice what I preached either. Like I own a personal residence and I flipped a home once that became a rental. And I'm just now like, okay, now it's time to get into this shit because I made a bunch of mistakes because I was thinking once I have money, then I'll start learning. Stupid. So stupid, right? Real quick. One of the issues that we have, that so many people have with posting content and creating content, is making sure that the subject matter is interesting enough that people, not just in this little teeny sliver of, hey, I'm looking for a realtor, or I'm looking for tips for buying my first house, but how do you widen that? How do you make it appeal to a broad group of people? The top of funnel is huge, like you say. And I can't think of a better thing than financial advice or, teaching investment strategies and tips for getting into real estate or whatever, because I'm sure you see this all the time with your content. Isn't that stuff that people then tag their friends in, tag their spouse in, they share with others?
Yeah, man, I look at this stuff, even just a quick quote or something simple, and then they can dive deeper with your content. You want to get something to get them in. That stuff gets shared a ton. And that's how you grow your network and your audience on social, is people sharing your content. I mean, there's different ways of doing it. Yes. Maybe you get a piece of content that goes viral. Maybe a lot of people share your content. Maybe you run ads and it shows your content by paid media to new people. There's all kinds of ways, but the bottom line is the only way to grow your audience is for your content to be introduced to other people. So if you want to do that for free, then all you have to do is create content that someone would want to share. Shareable content is the number one way to grow your network for free. And that is financial tips. Like, for example, I just created a reel that a bunch of people shared, and it was like, hey, here's how you add quick value to your home. This is a way to add $10,000 of value to your home, make it a smart home by doing X, Y, and Z. And these are being marketed for an average of X dollars more. And, that piece of content gets shared a lot because it's something that would be valuable even if you aren't in a home right now, or even if you aren't transacting. I would like to know about that. Or, you just talked about mistakes, right? That's a mistake you made. Mistake avoidance is one of the top reasons why somebody follows somebody else. So if I told you these are the mistakes I've made, here's what I'm doing now. I wish I had done this before. 3 things I wish I knew when I was in my 20s, right? I just turned 40. And I'm pissed at myself. Why didn't I do this during my 20s instead of just starting in my late 30s? Now, it turns out I got plenty of fucking time. It's okay. I'll make it, right? But imagine if I had started buying rentals when I was in my 20s.
Right.
So what would the older Neel or the older Dustin tell to the younger dude? That's valuable content, because there are people in your audience who are 26. They don't want to make the same mistakes. Mistake avoidance. Think about that for, content.
Yeah, and like you said, you make it a list, like, the three mistakes to avoid, or three things I wish I had learned, or 5 or 7 or whatever.
Because we all have that, right? I mean, all of us. And what's the average age of a realtor nowadays, or a lender? We're getting fucking old, man. I mean, some of these, it's hard,
almost
the guys
retirement age.
Yeah, I'd love to know like what's the average age of your podcast listener, but I imagine it's got to be mid 30s, 40, I don't know, 40. What do you
Uh,
think?
I
Probably
have no
30s.
idea, but I'd say probably 40-ish.
Yeah, because I just know
Yeah.
from the DMs, and a lot of the
Right.
realtors are older. I mean, I do get some younger ones now as I've brought in, but
Right.
in the beginning, it was a lot of late 30s guys, even early 40s, and everybody's like wanting, they all have mistakes as far as things that they know now that they wish they would have done sooner, and that's a great piece of content for the younger generation. And one last thing I wanted to bring up before you go to the next topic was the advisor thing that you just said, where when you position yourself this way, now you're an advisor, not just someone who can get a transaction done, or someone who collects a check and then pieces out. It elevates you above your competitors. And I just did an event and Tom Ferry was there, and this is what he said to do for every single real estate agent and mortgage pro out there, is to call everybody in your database and let them know the value of their home. Like you just said, they don't know how much equity they gained. We've just had an extreme explosion in growth markets, and people don't even know. They don't follow this stuff. And imagine like having a stock portfolio and never getting a statement on it. Or
Right.
imagine you had a financial advisor and he never told you shit about what your
Ooh.
investments are doing. You'd be pissed at that guy. So
Ooh,
why
yeah.
aren't we calling people and be like, hey, dude, I don't know if you know this, like after we get through our formalities, like, I don't know if you know this, but the house down the street just sold for 600K. I mean, what a deal we got on that place at 450, 3 years ago or 2 years ago. It's awesome. You're doing really well at that. And then have you ever thought about upgrading, or have you thought about taking some of that money out and using it for something else? Right. So letting them know how much equity they have as now a tool. And he was said he had a list of people who had done this, and everybody on average who had done it had gotten a certain amount of transactions from this, either cash out refinancing if you're in lending, or as a realtor, somebody's like, well, shit, let's look at upgrading. I didn't know I had 200K to spend on the next down payment. Let's go, and that, how are they going to know unless you tell them?
Okay. Let's dive deep on that. I love that. And Tom Ferry's so spot on. And Barry Habib says very similar things. You need to not just do their loans, do their mortgage, but you need to be an advisor. Teach them how buying a home can change their family tree forever financially. Teach them how it can build wealth and how it can create cash flow and all of that. And if you do, you're their agent or loan officer for life, and they're going to tell everyone else about it, and they're going to do more deals. They're going to do more deals because they see that, oh, this makes sense. But what Tom Ferry mentioned about letting everyone know what their house is worth. I was listening to a podcast and I was pulling it up just now. Do you ever listen to How I Built This, that NPR podcast with Guy Raz, How I Built This?
No, I've heard of it though. Is it good?
Really well done podcast. I listened to one from June 13th with Rich Barton, who founded Expedia and Zillow and Glassdoor. Well, he was talking about Zillow, and they were thinking, okay, what can we do for business? And they're like, they were like, what if you could look at the value of your home just like you were looking at a stock chart? What if your home value was like a stock chart? And they were like, oh shit, that started Zillow. Okay, so that concept is huge.
Idea, yeah.
That one simple idea started the Zestimate behind Zillow, which started the whole damn company, and now this giant within the industry that every consumer knows and uses. And so that is so huge. And there's tools out there. Like, do you use HomeBot, Neel?
Yeah, that's a great way to let people know on an automatic basis, especially when you have a large database. It's amazing.
Yeah. HomeBot's pretty awesome. They're not a sponsor or anything. They're just a sick tool that I know a lot of agents and loan officers use. It kind of sends them a monthly update with a chart of where their home value is going. And that generates conversations. It can get somebody who maybe wasn't even considering selling until they're like, wait, I have how much in equity now? I could do what with that? So that's so key.
And these guys aren't necessarily going to Zillow every day to check their house value, like stock chart. So, you may be the bearer of amazing news. It's a great strategy. Like, you're bringing good news to everybody. It's awesome. Like Santa Claus.
Absolutely. Okay. So this content that you're posting, a lot of it's financial, a lot of it's investment oriented, and I click on it all the time. Like, it gets me because it's stuff that I'm interested in as well. And I learn from it, and I share it in my stories and all of that. So I know that that's just happening across the board. What are some of the topics that are the hot topics? Like, what are some of those pieces of content you've done that you're like, holy shit, like people really want to know about this?
Financial freedom is the number one thing. So people want to know, even broke people want to know how to become financially free. They want to know how to get passive income, and, so they imagine themselves on a beach, collecting income and not working. Right. So sharing, yes, this is possible. You got to do a lot of fucking work first, but it is possible. And
Totally.
the way that it's most possible for the average person is going to be through the ownership of real estate, because I can think of no other way where, you get that type of leverage. First of all, you only have to put down this much, but you get returns based on this much. And doing this for rental properties, like all the tax benefits, of doing so, like, people don't realize when you buy a rental property and you're collecting rent, that small amount of positive cash flow in the beginning, that's tax-free money because of depreciation. You get to depreciate the property. It wipes out your taxable income on that property, even though every month you're collecting X hundred of dollars of rent. Well, imagine you did that across multiple properties. This is how you hear about all these real estate guys who pay zero income tax, because they're getting their income in the form of rent, and then the depreciation wipes out the tax liability on the rent. I don't think the average person realizes this, and so then you've got appreciation and you've got all these different things you can talk about. But um, the fact that, making extra money, yes, that's important for the first part of your business career. But what you'll find, and I hate to sound like cliche or douchebag about this, but like, you'll find that the money doesn't really change much unless you get to like extreme levels. So for example, if I just run as fast as I can, close as many deals as I can, and I have an extra $500,000 in the bank, and I wake up tomorrow, I've got $500,000 saved, I feel pretty good about myself. But does it really change my life? Like, I still got to go to fucking work. I still got to take care of my kids and family. I still worry about what's the next thing for business. How am I going to bring more in? I can't just go all of a sudden and start blowing it on fucking, cars and jets and vacations. So really it changes nothing, which sounds crazy, but it's the truth once you start saving money. So what really gives you peace of mind and really change your life is cash flow, is the flowing of money to you. That's what's like, dude, this money's coming in, whether I wake up or sleep today, or whether if I die, my family will have it for life. Like, that cannot be outlived. So cash flow from real estate, meaning everyone's always going to need a place to live. The tenant's going to pay the mortgage down for you. You don't even have to pay anything after your down payment. The tenant's going to pay it off for you. And now once that property's paid off, that income that's produced from that piece of property, you can't outlive. That's money that will be with you forever. And that to me is like true financial freedom, when you have enough passive income to where you can do whatever the F you want. You can just say, dude, I don't want to work anymore. I'm done with this whole shit, or I'm going to just take in a management role and help coach people or manage people. And I'm exiting the rat race. You know what I mean? Like, that's your ticket out of the rat race, is creating income outside of the rat race.
Yes. As I was first getting into the real estate industry and just wrapping my head around the whole thing, like all of it, I first thought that to be financially free meant a certain amount of money. Like, if you have $5 million cash in the bank, you're financially free. And then I start learning, all these people that are they're buying apartment buildings or building apartment buildings, and they're buying duplexes and single family homes, and they're picking up as many units as they can. And they're like, no, you're financially free when your cash flow exceeds your expenses, because then like you can live off the cash flow. And I'm like, holy shit, that's such a paradigm shift. But I always saw it as kind of like
the dollar amount.
Yes, but also not realistic for me.
Okay.
I guess, or because no one in my family had ever done that. And
yeah,
I'm like,
you're right. This is the part of the content that really works, is making it attainable.
Yes.
That's the part that connects. And those I found are the most shared pieces of content. I'm going to tell you how the average person can buy their first rental, or I'm going to tell you how to get started. And then it appeals to a broad group of people who may or may not want to transact right now, but they want to save that content. They save it, they share it, they do comment on it, they engage with it. And that's important. And then what you just said really quick about that $5 million, that's a moving target. Remember when we were younger and they said, dude, all you had to do is, get $1 million and then you can retire.
Right.
Well, now they said it's 5 million. And then I asked a financial advisor who I just did a deal with, where'd you guys come up with this 4 point something million for true financial, retirement? He's like, well, if you look at this, if you put that into a portfolio of conservative stocks, it would generate this amount of cash flow every year. So you'll get X number of dollars every month for the rest of your life. And I'm like, dude, that amount of money that 4 point something million dollars produces, it's not even that much. Like
No,
it ain't, I mean, it's enough to live, but you would still have a budget. So I was thinking when you got $5 million, you're fucking free, but apparently you're not,
no,
because you could outlive the money. And then you got a fucking problem because you're 80 years old and you don't have, retirement. So that's when I started thinking like, it's not necessarily about the money unless you somehow come into wealth of like 10, 20 million. Then yeah, I guess you could say that just the lump sum is enough. But for the average person, they're never going to get that. So then it becomes about cash flow is the secret.
it's such a beautiful thing. And aside from my first rental property, which we made $600 a month cash flow from the one unit, which was great.
Yeah.
What we should have done is gotten 30 more of them. We didn't, but that was nice. It covered some expenses, but it was a little bit. And it wasn't until I started earning residual income each month, multiple five figures each month from my brokerage that comes in no matter what from deals others are doing. I had 87 transactions happen last month in my group, and I got paid for that. And it just comes in every month. And I'm like, I wonder how much I'd need to have in the bank to spit off this kind of income each month. And I don't remember exactly the interest rate that you'd have to be earning or sorry, the return you'd have to be earning or anything like that. But it was something like 10 or $12 million you'd have to have in a lump sum to spit off 200K a year.
Not possible.
Like good
I mean,
luck.
it could be. You can win the lottery or something, but yeah,
right.
like you saving up all that money through hard work and toil, like it ain't happening for the average
No. But that's attainable for real estate agents. It's attainable for loan officers through, you could do it through network marketing. You could do it through real estate. You could do it through business ownership. You could do it through, dividends. If you invest in other restaurants or whatever, like there's so many ways to earn cash flow. What are some of the things that you teach aside from rental real estate, which is really, really freaking smart and right in line with what we do for a living? What are some of the other ways that you teach people?
Yeah. So that's the first step. And then that strategy is you get really good at your job, build a team, make more money, take that money, put it into real estate deals. And I say, make yourself go broke because it keeps you hungry. If I have 200 grand in the bank right now, I'm a little bit like less hungry every day. The bigger your savings, the less hungry you are at the next deal. Let a deal go, oh, well, I'm good. Right. I don't have to prospect as hard today, but if you ship that money into a deal and not literally broke, but liquidity is low again,
right.
you stay hungry. So in the beginning, that's what I would do. Just ship money into a deal, start over again, build up the savings, put it into a deal, do it again, keep yourself kind of low liquidity on that side. And someone would say, well, what about an emergency? That's too dangerous, Neel. Well, you were broke before. You didn't have any fucking savings anyways. I mean, you didn't think about risk at that time. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got a little bit of money, so I better keep it because it's too risky to have the money. 2-3 years ago, you didn't have that money anyways. And you were fine. You didn't think about like, what happens if I get in a car wreck? Well, you'll figure it out. You'll fucking sell the house. People worry about problems that are never going to happen. And, it keeps them from reaching goals. So you get a little bit of money and then you hold it. So I would say, put the money into deals first. The next thing is, if you're in this business, which I'm sure most of your listeners are, is to build a team. Like what you just said, get more people to work with you. You can't do it all by yourself. These solo agents that work for 20, 30 years, just themselves, never hired anybody, never built a team. Look at them and then come back to this podcast. Like, look at those people, because I can tell you right now, you see regret, and you see stress, you see age, you see how and these are great people, but for whatever reason, they never hired. They never hired help. They never invested in the business. So they made money and they hoarded it, and they just held on to it out of scarcity mindset or whatever that is. You just feel like you need to just save it up. I don't want to hire somebody because what if it's a waste? Well, what if it's not? The upside far outweighs the downside of hiring somebody, realizing they're fucking dumb or couldn't do the job, and then firing them. You wasted 2 months' wages at the most. Big deal. You know what I mean? Like, what's the upside? They allowed me to go get 4 more transactions this month. Well, that's a pretty good ROI. You know what I mean? I'll take that risk reward every day because I can cut the shit if it doesn't work. And the upside is amazing. So think about risk reward in terms of things working out, and stop being so scared. Think about the people who make the most money in life, venture capitalists, tech founders, they are eternally optimistic. This is going to work out. I'm starting this company and it's going to work out. I don't give a shit what people tell me. I'm seeing this thing through. And then they become billionaires. Fucking Jeff Bezos is going to space, right? How, like this, he had to have thought like, dude, I can do anything. They're just optimistic. And that's the highest level of extreme optimism. I don't want people to think about this and become delusional, but in your business, in your investments, assume the upside and think about that being greater than the downside, and take risk. I just think people have a skewed view of risk. So hiring people, get more income. Building a team, get more income. So that way, while you're sleeping, like you just said, deals are closing and you're getting a small piece of those deals. It doesn't have to be huge, but it adds up.
Absolutely. I just finished this morning this book called Building an Elite Organization by Wenner. Have you heard of this one yet?
But I've heard of the author.
He's a freaking baller. He's ranked as an Inc. 5000 fastest growing US company for 8 years. Average 3-year growth rate exceeding 400%, over $1 billion in assets with their real estate management company, and one of the top 15 real estate teams on the Wall Street Journal list 7 years straight. And he's in his 30s.
Oh shit! So he did it right.
He did it right. And this whole thing is the blueprint for how to build the team, who to hire, how to pay them, how to structure it, which meetings to have, like how to set goals for the team and all of that stuff. And some of the highest producing real estate teams that I know of operate off of this, or another one called Traction by I think it's Gino. Yeah, Traction's kind of the more known one. But
and like anybody who's done anything, in a level of success, they didn't do it by themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. He didn't learn all this himself. He didn't just invent it. Like he learned this from others and just kind of made some iterations and put it into his own system. But none of these people reinvented the wheel, and none of you listening have to reinvent the wheel with anything either. You just have to do shit and put your own little spin on it, which is pretty natural. Neel, you put your own spin on your content, your own voice, your own personality. Will you describe the filter that you put ideas through, when you're like, oh, that's a cool idea. Like, how do you decide what you put out there?
So I just keep a list of all these ideas, and they come to me at weird times. Like, this is the worst fucking part of this, is like, I get the idea around I'm trying to go to sleep. Yeah. So I don't know. I get tired like 7, 8 o'clock. Then, you're not quite ready to go to sleep. And then all of a sudden 11 o'clock, midnight, I'm getting all these ideas and I can't, so then I'm making notes.
Totally.
And so like, it's just, I don't know why that comes at the weirdest times, or you're in the shower and you get an idea. I don't know. It's something to do with like a state your brain's in, and it allows ideas to come in, and then that keeps you going. It's some weird shit I read about.
But like whenever I'm walking the dog, all my ideas come when I'm walking the dog. And I've since learned the science behind it. Like a brisk walk is one of the best things you can do to stimulate thought and creativity within your brain. So if you guys are ever stuck, or you're overly stressed and you're just like, shit, I don't know what to do, go on a brisk walk for 20 minutes. And the ideas just start flowing. You get oxygen into your blood, into your brain. And that's when it all comes for me. And then I try to go to bed an hour later. It's ridiculous.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. So, you need to keep the list of ideas. So that's your phone, Apple Notes, voice memos are big for me. Then I come back to them. And then just a Google Sheet or Google Doc is simple enough to where you can just keep track of this. And then you could, come back to that and be like, oh, dude, I must have been drunk when I wrote that one. That's dumb. Let me take that out of here. This one sounds like it works, but you can come back and review, and then you could filter into the best ones. And then eventually, if you have feedback from the audience. So for right now, like what I've done is I started tweeting a lot. I never got into Twitter because every time I tweet, nobody would fucking see it. Like, it's literally the one platform where you get zero engagement. They don't give a shit about you. Like every other platform, you at least get a few likes or a few things. Like I would tweet and it would be like, nobody liked your tweet for
That's how
months.
I feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's useless to me. So what I found was, you know what it is? It's the algorithm there is extremely difficult for people to grow and see your content. They show it to like 2 dudes when you're starting. And if those 2 guys didn't like it, they ain't showing it to nobody else. So what it taught me was how to be a better copywriter. So when I could say the same thing, but say it in a more innovative way, or a more grabbing way, even a more polarizing way, right? And then what I found is you get a couple likes. And then I was like, okay, let me figure out a way to, schedule a bunch of these tweets. And there's a tool I use called Hype Fury, which connects to Twitter, and it's one of their preferred providers, I guess. But I just write out a bunch of tweets, got better at it. And now, like, when I tweet something, it'll either bomb, meaning like it got 0 or 2 or 3 likes, or it'll get like 10, 12 likes. Or in rare cases, I just had my first viral tweet where it got 1,000 likes, and I was like, oh shit, that I'm onto something there. But you can get the feedback from the audience. And then just so happens that I take that same tweet, expand on it in a reel or a video or another graphics post on Instagram, and it does well there. So you can use data from the audience, like post a bunch of shit on Instagram, on Facebook. And even if you have a very limited audience, the ones that got liked the most, here's a clue: the algorithm is meant to be like people. So when you don't get any engagement, it's because the content sucks, or you didn't word it correctly in order to keep someone's attention. So that's where you can really, I'm always shocked when someone's like, dude, I'm not getting any growth or engagement on social. I'm like, okay, I look back and they never changed anything. You did the same shit for a year straight. Like, you didn't listen to the audience that they didn't like this. Like, they're telling you they don't like it. They don't heart it up. They didn't leave a comment, so do something about that. Get better at it. And then that's how I filter now ideas and then as you get more audience, it becomes a lot easier. Because now this week, for example, I posted 20, 30 posts. The best ones I'm going to do more on. The worst ones I'll do less of.
Yes. The broke agent told me that's how he tests ideas too. So when you see a tweet from him, usually like you'll see the idea tweeted and then you'll see it made into a reel or a meme over on Instagram.
And the tweet could just be a headline,
Yeah.
And so like you talk about financial free, like that's how I caught financial freedom was a huge thing. It was every time I tweeted about that, exiting the date 9 to 5, here's your path to financial freedom. Like, the tweets would always do better than the other ones. So keeping it simple was a big thing for me. We, in this industry, we tend to want to cover all bases. I don't know. Sometimes we think, everyone's got a fear. I'm surprised at this fear of being sued. How many people get sued on a daily basis? Everyone's like, dude, I better cover all this, or I'll get sued. How many times have you been sued, bro? 0. So what led to this massive fear of being sued every day where you can't speak freely? Like, right. Where did this come? Like, that's another thing. We're worried about these risks that never happen. I don't know. So I'm like, okay, start posting more, and then I'll get to hear more what the audience thinks. Then I can filter those ideas, do more of what works. And then Tom always says this, then we just start running plays that work. And for example, like long form video isn't really working on Instagram. You know what I mean? Because people's attention span, it works great on YouTube, but it doesn't work there. So doing a long video about the wealth generation of real estate, it's going to fall on deaf ears because the people aren't ready for that yet on IG from you. They don't recognize you as the expert yet. So like starting with just little nuggets, less is more. And less is more because then they're going to ask you questions and they're going to wonder what's coming next. So just dumb it down and even cut off the idea, I've noticed. And they're like, hey, wait, what's the rest of this one? And they start messaging you. I'm like, hey, stay tuned. Make sure you follow me for the part 2.
That's smart. So switching it back to money and finances, because I teased this up front and I want to make sure we hit it. Cars. This is talked about a lot in Facebook groups within the industry. Do you lease a car? Do you buy the car? Should it be a nice one? Should it not be? You have some nice cars. I love seeing your Lamborghini Urus on Instagram, your SUV. What advice do you have for people, whether they have the financial ability to yet or not, once you can start getting some nice cars and start, doing what you want instead of just what you feel is feasible or reasonable? How do you recommend we use money in a smart way to do that stuff?
So with vehicles, if it's for business purposes, which, in our business, we do a lot of running around and I do a lot of marketing and different things and events, and I have a personal vehicle and then I have a business vehicle. So when you have a vehicle for business, or if you just have one and it's over a certain percentage, you'd have to check with your tax advisor to get the exact percentage. You can write that off, right? So this becomes a business expense. So if you have, whether you're Schedule C or whether you're running a S Corp or whatever, you can write it off. Now there's something interesting called bonus depreciation that I learned about, where if the vehicle is over 6,000 pounds, you can take a write-off of the complete purchase price of the vehicle. So when I had the means to do so, I always wanted to get a luxury vehicle, like a exotic vehicle, but I was always thinking, what are people going to say? And, are people going to think I'm a douchebag or whatever? And then I finally just said, who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? Like, if I want the car and I think it's dope, I'm doing it for the right reasons. I can afford it. I'm going to do it. So what happens is I purchased that vehicle. It's for business. It's in content. It's what I use when I travel. Like, I use it to meet with everything. I'd use that vehicle. And I have another car at home for personal use. So I can clearly identify this as business 100%. I get to write off the entire purchase price of the vehicle. So you're talking about a $250,000 vehicle. If I would have had to pay taxes on the $250,000, what would that tax liability have been? So in that case, that tax liability is an immediate savings to me. So I can literally deduct that like from the price of the vehicle. So really, instead of buying a $250,000 vehicle, I'm buying it for $100 and something thousand now, So that is deducted. Now, here's the other thing with luxury vehicles and nicer vehicles. People judge you. They judge a book by its cover. And you think about this. I'm not saying everybody should just go run out and buy a nice truck or SUV and waste all the money. But I'm saying is like, when you do so, the vehicle will make you money if leveraged correctly. And this is kind of like a harsh truth, I guess, of people. They're like, dude, I assume you're successful if you drive this car.
Right.
Like, I'll take it. It just so happens I deserve it, right? But maybe I don't deserve it. It doesn't matter to the audience. They still give you that initial credibility. You know what I mean? So now, how many conversations have I started where somebody literally pulled up next to me and said, dope car, dude. And then we started talking. What do you do for a living? Oh, I do loans. Well, shit, man, I need a fucking loan, or let's talk, or let's connect. And then they just give you more credit than you deserve because of the vehicle you're driving. Or they don't say anything to you and you pull up to the appointment in this car and they just treat you better. And I don't think that's fair. If I pulled up in a fucking Camry, I should be treated the same. But the bottom line is, it happens.
It does.
So if you can afford to do so, may as well fucking do it. Get the write-off and leverage it to make more money. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's a no-brainer. If you're holding off on buying that car because you think it's a waste of money, if you're in sales, you can leverage it to make more money.
Exactly. Everyone that I know who has a very nice, what you consider a luxury car, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or whatever, a Bentley, every single one is like, this has been one of the best investments I've ever made in my business.
And exotic cars, right now go up in value, or they hold their value. So it's not like a typical car which appreciates. But even if you're like one rung below exotics, like you think about, Mercedes or BMWs, or people will treat you better. Whether that's unfortunate or fortunate, I don't know. But it's just the facts of the situation.
What are your thoughts on leasing, financing, or paying cash?
So I would the one of the great things about that depreciation write-off is you don't even have to spend the money. In my case, I just paid cash for it because it was a deal. But like, I just if you could take a loan out and the interest rate was really low and you only put, say, 10% down on the thing and finance the rest, you still get the full write-off, even though it's leveraged loan. So that's how people, it's a kind of an advanced strategy where you could use debt and get the tax benefit without even having laid out the cash and a purchase. Now, if you do a lease, you don't get to do the depreciation write-off per my tax advisor, but you can write off the payments and the applicable percentage of the payments that are related to your business. So if it's 50-50, then you could write off half of the lease payment against your business income. So leases are great because it's tax benefit. And if, in my view, the lease is cheaper than buying the car in many cases, especially if you look at rapidly depreciating cars. So when you buy a BMW or you buy a Mercedes or you buy a fucking Ford truck and you look at what's the value going to be in 5 years versus the value today, the difference between those is your true cost of the vehicle. Now, like, if you added up all the lease payments and they're less than that, then it's better to lease it than it is to buy it. So run the math on those kind of things. And if you ever go to like a dealer and you ask them like about the lease, ask them what's the residual value, and the residual value is what's the value of the vehicle at the end of the lease term. And then you can run the math. Like, this is a $50,000 car, and in 3 years, it's going to be worth $25,000. So is it worth it for me to spend the $50K on this thing? Because it's going to be, it's like a falling brick. So it may be worth it to just pay for the use of the vehicle, and the use costs you less than what that $25,000 worth of depreciation was going to be.
Yes. Yeah. I've leased a couple cars now. I love it.
And you get a new car every few years too.
Exactly. New car. Like I don't have to worry about repairs or any of that bullshit. It's all included. But when we get our Tesla, we're going to be, we're just going to buy that. We're going to own it because they hold their value so well.
Yes. So that's the difference, right? That's not depreciating rapidly.
Correct. Exactly. Interesting. Yeah. It's always such a debate. But talk about,
but then, the benefit in our case, the benefit of the people listening is like, now you have a write-off on top of that debate. Yes. So it becomes even more beneficial to people in our industry.
Yes. What has driving a nice car, what has that done for your mindset?
Oh yeah. It's crazy. Like it inspires you to do more. You must live up to the standard, I guess, every day. It's if you're into it, it's really cool. Like it makes you feel better every day. It's just like, dressing well or wearing a nice watch, like what does that do to your overall mood and optimism and hunger or whatever for business? Like it just makes you, I don't know, it gives you a better outlook on life. And then that leads to more business because you're attracting more business because apparently people can get your vibe from you. So if you do end up doing that, I think you should, if you're happy and excited about it, you should show it off. I don't think the guy who's saying you're a douchebag is the anomaly. Most people I've found, if you showed the journey, are high-fiving you. Congrats, dude. Like, that's awesome. Like, so if you're someone who loves exotic cars, like start prepping now and start sharing with that in your audience, with your audience. Like, this is my dream car. One day I'm going to get this car, and then I'm working I love cars, or I love this. And then all of a sudden when you buy it, people are like happy for you. They're not going to like talk shit about it.
Anyone who does, see, I used to have those limiting beliefs too. Like, I can't have a nice car because what will they think? Well, who the hell are they? They are not people you really want to associate with. And if they are, like, if they're family members or whatever, if they judge you negatively, it's just a projection. They're projecting their own insecurities, their own limiting beliefs out on you. It really has nothing to do with you. And so,
and these people that think it, what do you say to, this is a thought, a debate I get is agents will say, well, if you drive that nice of a vehicle, people will think you're ripping your clients off. Oh, I think people will think you're successful.
Yep.
And I would rather work with someone who's successful, has an actual business, has a structure. You can reach them when they're not there. Like, I like those type of people because they're running a real business and they're successful at it. I don't think of like, oh, this guy must have robbed a bunch of people to get that car. I don't know where this belief came from, but agents think that too.
Everyone listening, I hope you can tell the difference between the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. Neel drives a Lamborghini. He does very, very well. He has a big business, bunch of employees, abundant mindset. Interesting. And anyone who does think, oh, he must have gotten that car by screwing people or ripping off clients, I can't imagine that's a client you want to work with. Think about you.
It seems highly correlated that people that say that are broke or miserable.
Yes. Exactly. So you're not going to find someone above you, so to speak, above you.
Nobody's
saying that about you.
Yeah. I've never had anybody. The guy who leaves that comment, and as I've gotten more content to go like semi-viral for me, you get a lot of hate comments in the thing.
Right.
And it's always Johnny Pants 24, lives in his fucking mom's house, and he's talking crap about how I'm misleading people on my real estate video, talking optimistically about real estate. What if real estate crashes? I'm like, well, what do you care, bro? You're living in your mom's basement. Like, he's like, I'm talking about real estate appreciation, and they're dropping comments like, well, you didn't talk about the payment. I'm like, yeah, well, you have to pay for housing no matter where you live. So yes, there's a payment for a house.
They don't
because they live it. Yeah. Your mom and dad are paying that. So I would ignore this group of people that are going to talk crap because that's just a reflection of them. Exactly. That's not on you. It's nothing to do with us.
Exactly. Love it, Neel. Thank you so much, man. I love everything you're doing with the content you're putting out. I look forward to it every time you put something out. It's awesome. And I appreciate you coming back on the show and sharing behind the scenes a little bit about, a growth mindset, a scarcity, an abundance mindset, and, just some money and wealth principles that are important to discuss, because I don't hear it that often. Pretty important shit, but I don't hear that often.
No, this has been fun, and nobody asked these questions, so I'm glad we got to go over it. And one last thing before you wrap it up, dude, I wanted to bring this up. I wrote it down early and then I forgot. This isn't when you get to next levels and you're starting to invest more, this is something that pays the most ROI, and you'll appreciate this as well. Investing in your personal brand, right? So we talk about content. We don't talk about content. We don't have to specifically talk about content, but what you're talking about is you becoming a thought leader and you putting a lot of that out. So there's an investment I make in content creation. It's more video editor, so I don't have to stay up at night editing these pieces of content. In your case, it might be someone to help you distribute your podcast. Yep. I don't think that you would have gotten all the people that you've recruited without this podcast.
Right.
I would certainly have not gotten any of my team members without my podcast. Every single person here came as a result of my network built online, either directly through like messaging or through someone who knew me on content, and then they brought them into my circle because they knew me from my content. So what you'll find is you'll attract better people. And we talked earlier about building a team, that being a way to get more income. Like the way you do that, because someone's next question is, how do you guys do that? How'd you get 80 people? Well, you get them by having a strong personal brand. People work with people with whom they trust. And if you are trustworthy, online, and you're developing all this trust at scale, you're just going to have way more opportunities to recruit people. And then that's going to lead to way more income. So I think that has been, if you talk about ROI percentages, every dollar I've put into my personal brand has paid me back in spades. I would say it blows out every other investment I've ever made.
Absolutely. Dude, I'm glad you threw that in at the end. That's so spot on. And that's certainly how it's played out for me. And even if the business that I get or agents that join my team or whatever, even if they don't directly come from the podcast or the personal brand, if somehow they hear about me or someone shares one of my things and then they're like, what's this? And they look at it, it passes the sniff test. It's like, oh, that person's credible because they've got this brand, they've got this, and they've got blah, blah, blah. And the credibility, now they take you seriously and they see you, they respect you, right? Or at least at a minimum, see you as credible. And that's a very, very, very big deal. Otherwise, it's an uphill battle to build credibility if you don't have it from the get.
Yeah. So you're starting at the bottom of the hill. You have to get all the way to the top when you're trying to recruit somebody. You're already mid-level or even higher if you have content and you have a strong personal brand. So you're starting with a really unfair advantage. It's great for us. Yeah. And the reason why it is great is because not many people invest in it, because it takes time. It takes years to do this. You feel like you're doing it for free, but all of a sudden it pays you back huge. The value is now you've got a team and you're making all this extra money. Well, how'd you get there? Because you had a strong personal brand. So I would tell people to don't ignore that that's an asset of its own. It's a unique asset.
I mean, you go sit down with the seller and you want to convert more listing presentations, build a brand, build a great online presence. So then when you leave or before you even come and they Google you, they see all your shit and they're like, oh, like this is, wow, they must be a big deal, because they have this and this and they host a podcast and blah, blah, blah. And they don't know any of your metrics, but it doesn't matter because online you have credibility in their eyes. That's all that matters. And pretty soon you start converting a lot more of those listing presentations. So if you're sitting there wondering, how come I'm not able to get these listings or whatever, what does your online presence look like? If you're telling them that you're a great marketer and you're going to get them more exposure for their house than anyone else, but you can't get exposure for your damn self, they're not stupid. They're not stupid. So simple concepts. I'm glad you brought this up, Neel. Thanks again for coming on the show. Love your stuff, man.
Thanks, dude.
Absolutely. And we got to do the rapid fire questions again. We did it last time. We got to do it. Got to do it real quick. So let me pull those up. All right. So either or, you can elaborate if you want to. Don't have to. You just pick either or. And then we'll tell everyone where they can find you and we'll wrap this thing up. Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram.
Instagram or LinkedIn?
Right now for me, Instagram.
Books or podcasts?
I prefer podcasts.
Me too. Podcast or audiobook?
Right now I'm finding more enjoyment and more knowledge in podcasts just because it keeps changing, but that's a tough one. But right now, podcast.
Cool. iPhone or Android?
iPhone. I switched finally. I had an Android. I was like the last guy holding onto my Android.
Really?
Showing up as the green, like you're being outed in the text messaging.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Finally
Isn't it?
switched. It's
Yeah.
bad. Like people actually look down on you now when you have a green show up. I'm like, oh shit, that guy's like on Android.
Android
So
shame.
it's bad. Yeah. So I finally pulled the switch on that.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is hilarious. Alexa or Google Home?
I have Google Home.
Oh, Evil Empire.
Yeah.
It's all right. I have a Nest, so same deal.
There you go.
Burgers or pizza?
Oh shit. Pizza.
Yeah, I'd go with you on that one. Pizza's just New York or LA?
Well, right. Both are shit.
Neither
right
right
now.
now.
Yeah,
Neither
right now. But in a normal life, I would probably go with LA because of the weather.
That's funny. You had the same. When I was reading that, I was like, oh, both those places are hellscapes right now, and you had the same reaction. So
incidentally, those are the states that most people left last year.
Weird how that works.
Strange.
Weird. Yeah. New York, LA, San Francisco. Ugh. NFL or NBA?
NFL.
Football or baseball?
I think football is more fun for me.
Totally. Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Podcast or vlog?
Podcast.
You're a podcast man. I love it.
There you go.
YouTube or Facebook Live?
For lives, I think it depends on the audience. They're almost equal if you have a small audience. So I would go with Facebook because you'll reach more people on Facebook.
Cool. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or Millionaire Real Estate Agent?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Uber or Lyft?
Uber.
Gary Vee or Grant Cardone?
Gary Vee all day, man.
Totally. It's funny. My wife and I were watching Undercover Billionaire, the season that had Grant Cardone in it. He got COVID during the season. Interesting. My wife likes him, but she's like, yeah, I see why you guys say he's a douchebag.
He's a little crazy. Yeah. I mean, I like him still. I think he's got some great shit out there, but it's just,
he does
from overall, like if you had to stack them up, you get more value from Gary's stuff.
Agreed.
If you go deeper. And Gary's stuff, you have to go a little bit deeper because now whatever he puts on Instagram is the same shit he's been putting out for the last 5-10 years. So it's very like surface level. But if you ever go to like his YouTube, he'll literally do like a consulting call with like Fortune 500 companies and just put the whole fucking video on YouTube.
Yeah.
And you can listen in like on his best nuggets. And that's the cool thing about Gary.
Love it. And Neel, what's the most impactful book you've ever read?
Oh shit. So coming back to douchebag Cardone, I think that's what
10X?
started for me was the 10X rule. Yeah. Because it just kind of made me realize you got to think way bigger. I'm thinking way too small. And the amount of everything I'm doing needs to be, increased. And it just kind of blew the ceiling for me. So from there, I've read a ton of books since then. And even his stuff's been updated since then, but that's a classic that I think everybody would benefit from.
I agree, man. I can't listen to him read it, but I can certainly read it myself, and it's a damn good book. I agree.
Yes, sir.
Well, Neel, where can people find you if they're not already following you and sharing every post? Where can they do so?
You can just go to Instagram and follow me there. If you're on YouTube, you can look me up there. Just search Neel Home with 2 E's, NEELHOME. And then if you go to my Instagram page, there's a link where you can join my free email list where I basically give out content ideas every 2 weeks. Every other week, I send out an idea and just basically share what I'm doing from a content basis to my entire email list. So you can join for free and get free ideas.
Awesome. And we'll have links to your social and all of that in the show notes. If you're listening, if you're watching, it's in the YouTube description. Neel, my friend, good to see you. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, bro.
You bet.